This is a book that I never expected to do. Most of my books I kind of expect to do, but this one I didn't expect to do. When I look back on it, I think I prepared for this book for about 25 years. Because it's a book about somebody who I met as in my work as the coordinator of a Latino cultural center, student center really, in Chicago. And then over the years he became my friend. He got progressively, he was a major organizer of Latino cultural events, mainly art events in the city. And his whole drive was to create a center, a gallery or a museum of Mexican, Chicano, and more broadly Latino arts in the city. And it was part of my job and growing in my career to know about such things. But gradually he became my friend, and I never expected to write a book about him. And he got progressively sick. He had mental breakdowns. He had physical breakdowns, and he was rapidly coming to a crucial time in his life on this planet. And besides, I'd moved on to Houston, and I had been asked to chair the Department of Modern and Classical Languages, which was a pretty consuming job. And even though I had lots of material on Chicago, and I'd never written on Chicago, in Latino Chicago, my field was Latin American Studies. I was also working on Latin America, and most of my work I'm known for is on Latin America and not on U.S. Latino themes. But I was almost the first month I was here, I went to a conference at the Museum of Fine Arts of Houston, which was on Latin American and Latino arts. And three people, one of them from this campus, Nick Canelos, one of them the head of the Rockefeller Center initiative on global and Latin American concerns, but also a very important U.S. Latino figure, especially in the arts, Tomás Ibarra Frausto, and the head of the Latino Institute at Notre Dame University. They were at this conference. His name was Gil Cardenas. He was an old friend of my friend, whose name is José González. And they came up to me, drinks in hand, to say, "You're a friend of José González, and you write books. How come you haven't written a book about him?" And I said, "Well, he's my friend. I mean, I'm not his friend to gather information from him, but rather to share in his joys and sorrows in life, and he's one of the people who I have decided to keep as a very close friend." And he said, "All the more reason you must do this." I said, "Well, I just got this job here in Houston. How am I going to do this book?" They said, "That's up to you to figure out." And I thought, I can't really write this, but first of all, I don't have a strong background in art. Latino arts I knew something about, but not just in a kind of, not in any systematic way, not from the point of view of an art critic. And I thought, what kind of book could I write about a man who is an artist and an arts promoter? And I thought, well, as difficult as it might be, because José had many problems, including psychological problems, and there are periods where he would be difficult to talk to, I would just try and interview him and see if I could focus my questions in such a way that he would tell his story. And so I thought a lot about the questions and so on, but I already knew his story pretty well, and so I could pretty well map out what are the crucial things I needed to cover. And so I went to see him every time I went to Chicago, and every opportunity I had to go, and I have a lot of family in Chicago. My wife is between here and Chicago, so there were many times when I made as many opportunities as I could to go, and I had some time in the summer also. And sometimes it would be where José was living, and then sometimes it would be in a hospital ward where he was confined, or in a halfway house, or finally he was institutionalized because he couldn't really take care of himself. And that was a pretty tragic moment for him. His dreams of ever having a museum or gallery were clearly far beyond his abilities and his situation. He was indigent. He was now institutionalized. And I would visit him at this Latino home for the aging and continued interviewing him. And I was pretty confident fairly along, as difficult it might be in some other ways in his life, even walking, handling his food and so on, that he could coherently tell his story, and he had an incredible memory, and his memory, he was able to, what he would forget, maybe during the course of the interview, he would remember toward the end and say, oh, by the way, don't forget to say this, 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 and this. And I was taping and taping and taping. I got a University of Houston GEAR grant to develop a whole big project on global and Latin American concerns and some Latino concerns. And while most of that money went into other book projects that we did, I also put aside some money to get decent photographs of some of the artwork we selected, and also to pay somebody to transcribe the tapes. And the tapes were coming out, and I just said, print everything. If he says put you know, whatever. So then I then had a text to grapple with that expressed everything he had to say, and to see what I could do with it, to reshuffle it if need be, to do what I had to do to make it a coherent story. He was being erased. He was not able to produce art. The pills he was taking did not allow him to keep his hands steady. He developed Parkinson's. He could not draw. He could not sketch. He certainly could not paint. And so his artistic career really, after 1991, became virtually non-existent. And by the mid-1990s, he was virtually unproductive as an artist. And so this is his accomplishment in his late years, is this book itself. And of course I worked like a dog on it for 6 years, and I'm the editor, and I did my introduction and so on, but it's really his book. And so I don't know that if it's a book about a great artist. It's a book about an artist activist whose vision was very important in a given community, who influenced a lot of people in that community, and who, for better or worse, helped to make that community what it is today. So it's like the struggle against the erasure of what happened in those years.